Hello, everyone, and welcome. Oh my goodness, it's so good to be back. I feel like I have missed YouTube and posting and sharing these videos with all of you. I hope that everybody is doing well. Let's see here. I'm going to get started in just a minute. Let's see. I don't know if I can get messages or not, but that's okay. That's okay. We're just going to get situated over here. Beautiful. How is everybody doing? My name is Rebecca, and I'm also known as Akashic Bec. And I am a certified Akashic Records reader. I'm a certified numerologist. I've been studying numerology for the last 20 years. I'm also a hypnotherapist, so I practice SCHH or Soul Center Healing Hypnosis. I also do past life regressions. And I'm also a Reiki level 3 healer, as well as an auric healer and a motion code healer. So I'm a true manifesting generator. I have to do all of the things, I hope everybody can hear me okay. I am going to be sharing with all of you today the numerology for 2024 and talk a little bit about, the influences on the collective, how that might show up in our world, and what are some themes we can expect this year. And I'm also going to dive deep into what this year might look like for you based off of your personal year. So your personal numerology for this year. So we all have, as a collective, we have universal years, universal months, and universal days. And then we also have personal years, personal months, and personal days. I will be touching a little bit on January's numerology as well, and some things that we can maybe notice, or some things that we can work on individually as well as together for this year. And I'm also going to bring up some astrological as well as tarot correspondence at the end. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am happy to answer them for you. And yeah, I just hope everybody is doing really well. Also wanted to mention, we've got some crazy solar flares going on right now. We have a lot of energy coming into Earth, kind of pummeling us energetically. But know that I'm also going to discuss this as well. Know that all of this was foreseen. All of this is happening right on schedule. We are getting upgrades, and yay for that. And if any of you follow the Schumann resonance, which is a chart that navigates the energies that are incoming on Earth and how they can affect us, know that has been going off the chain for the last day and a half. So we are all probably feeling it on some level. I'm going to scoot my chair just a little bit. Okay, so before I dive into 2024, I want to just discuss 2023 because we still have trickles of 2023's influence, coming into this year. So there's no definitive line. That's one thing I like to say about numerology, is there's no definitive line when it comes to one year transitioning into the other. So you're still going to feel effects, and then the closer it gets to 2025, we'll start to see themes of 2025 come into this year as well. So it's all about like how those energies mix and what's more prevalent, what's stronger, and what's more subtle, like what's the undercurrent. So 2023 was a 7 universal year. So there was probably a lot of you who were experiencing alchemy on some level. You were probably experiencing changes in your relationships. You were probably more into wanting to learn and study, as 7 is the number of knowledge and wisdom. And maybe some of you were actually healing generational patterns, or I hate to say curses, but maybe you were healing some generational trauma that was happening within your family, as 7 represents our ancestors. So we had a lot of people who were looking at familial patterning. They were probably trying to navigate those choppy waters. Last year was a pretty heavy, intense year in that way. So please also in the comments tell me how 2023 was for you, and tell me, what you're hoping to see in 2024. So let's dive into it, okay? The reason we're here. 2024 is an 8 universal year, as many of you probably already know. So the way that we calculate, for those who don't know, the way that we calculate a universal year is we add each number of the year together and reduce it to a single digit. In this case, we don't have to reduce it because it's already a single digit, but 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. So we're going to be seeing themes that 8 carries. We're also going to see subtle energies of the 2, the 2, the 0, and the 4. And I'll dive into that as well. So 8 universal years, or the number 8, tend to carry with them this strong need and desire for balance, rhythm, and security. And that is because 8 is the number of balance. If you turn 8 on its side, it's the infinity symbol. It's a never-ending number, as well as 0. So this is a very sacred, divine number because of that. It's never-ending. So it talks a lot about cycles. So we're going to be seeing a lot of cycles begin and end this year. And you may notice that in your own life. But for the collective, we're probably going to see, I know just a perfect example here in the United States, this is an election year. So we're going to be possibly seeing a new president leading the country as we go through the election process. And we're probably going to be seeing a lot around, the rebalancing. So the people who have been in control, and I've actually talked about this on my Instagram stories, so where people who have been in control for the majority of the time are going to start to lose their grip. And that control and that energy is going to come back to the people who have been kind of on the sidelines for a really long time. So if you look at this on a collective scale, this could have to do with astrologically Pluto moving into Aquarius, where the power is moving back into the hands of the people. And people get really excited when I say that. Now, I know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so we're probably not going to see too much happen around that, but we will start to see that begin. We'll see that cycle occur in our collective. And so there's no telling what that looks like. However, I feel like things that are beneficial for people, for example, maybe getting rid of antiquated laws that no longer apply to our modern society. Maybe some of those things will move out the door. We might see new policies being instilled, are large structures, so like corporations, large systems, which is also navigated by the number 8. Those things may be in for a big change. And so we just need to remember that when all of these big changes are occurring, that, yes, it might seem scary, it might seem overwhelming, but if you pull back and you look at the bigger picture, which is also associated with the number 8, 8 can see the big picture. It has a big perspective, but it can also focus on the details. And so seeing like how those small steps can add up over time, we just need to remember that all of these things will happen in divine timing. So trusting that 8 energy, trusting the 0 in 2024 to carry us through this year and allow us, gift us with that perspective that we all need, that will give us the reassurance to move forward and make the necessary changes, because it all starts, it starts with us, right? We do have power. We have power in numbers. No pun intended. So there are some other themes, obviously, of the number 8. So we have strength, victory, achievement, power, strategy, money, manifestations, and as I mentioned, structures, systems, and institutions. So 8 carries with it this really big power theme, right? For the collective, we may see, and this was something that came through to me intuitively, was power struggles. So as the power shifts hands, we might see people upping the ante. 8, as I mentioned, is a number that like is able to pull back and also, the macro and the micro, like look at the details, but also pull back and look at everything as a whole. So it's really important this year that you work on your perspective. Don't let fear or uncertainty consume you, make you miserable. I feel like that's something that we have all dealt with in the last several years. When, especially in 2020, when COVID hit and we had no idea what was going on, we were all frazzled, we were all discombobulated, we were all trying to figure out what was happening. I feel like now we're kind of in this energy where we can start to pull back and see like the effects from COVID, the effects that it had on us mentally and physically and emotionally, as well as fiscally, and how it affected our economy. I feel like people are going to start to take maybe what was kind of dismantled in that time. Perhaps, for example, you had a business in 2020, and when all of this happened, you had to close down, and you were kind of like, well, I don't really know what to do. There was a lot of uncertainty. I feel like there will be answers, there will be resolution coming this year and next year. So the 8 and the 9 energies of the universal years are going to help with that. And you'll start to understand like the big picture and what all this was teaching you. I believe too, in 2023, which, is all about understanding and understanding. I feel like a lot of us realized like, okay, we can't do things the way that we used to. That's also going to be a big conversation this year, is we can't do things the way that we used to. And so we're going to have to kind of back up, punt, reevaluate how we want things to look going forward. So last year, this year, and next year are going to be big years where we start to solidify those things. We start making blueprints. We start having conversations. We start pulling our resources in, and we start, really trying to build something, together as a collective, and when I say collective, that could also mean in our communities. It's not just the whole world, like, that's a big undertaking. But whatever we can do to move ourselves in a more positive direction, I feel is always worthwhile. And so having these engagements and these conversations are so important. So I feel like that's going to be a big thing for this year. So also, let's talk a little bit really quick about money. So 8 represents the material world. We have light and we have shadow in everything, right? And I feel, and what was coming through to me is I feel that 8 is going to give us a new definition of what we value. So not just currency, I have a lot of people who come to me for readings and such and guidance, and they have like very significant money wounds, and these also can be generational as well. And so when we talk about money, it can really be a triggering point for people. Like, what am I going to do? If you look at the economy, like, what am I going to do? Like, everything is astronomical right now. I feel like too, in that perspective theme, we're going to have a new perspective on money and what we value. I also heard bartering, and that this was something that came to me intuitively, is going to be making a big comeback. I know that people do tend to barter. Anyways, that's always been the nature of humanity and our society. But I feel like uh, this coming year, we're going to really shift our value around money and what that looks like, and how that's going to affect us moving forward. Because once again, we can't do what we've always done. We're going to have big shifts when it comes to how we invest. So 8 is the number of investment, where we choose to put those investments. So I don't want anybody to be afraid when I say that, or feel triggered when I say that, because I feel like our viewpoints on money are going to change, and this is also part of that conversation that I mentioned that we all need to have. But it also talks about strategy. So 7 and 8, a theme that they both carry is strategy and negotiations. I feel like we're going to once again have those conversations, and we're going to start mapping out a blueprint of what we want our society to look like going forward. And of course it's going to be different, country to country. It might even be different state to state, community to community, but that's okay. As long as we can all try to get on the same page and make it fair for everybody. 7 and 8 and 9 are really, really big about fairness and equality, as is 4, but I digress. We're going to see a lot of opportunities happen, maybe even opportunities for these conversations and these negotiations. But I just feel like I just see like a vision of like the floor being cleared, and people stepping forward that maybe didn't always have an opportunity to use their voice and be heard. I want to give a really good example of using that power, using your personal power, to have fairness instilled. I saw a news story the other day about farmers in Germany, and how the government, is trying to place these unreasonable taxes on the farmers. Like, so they can't manage their own money, so they're trying to put it all back on the farmers and make it to where they can't sustain a living. And so they went to the capitals, and they drove their tractors up into the capitals, and they were throwing manure outside the doors. They were just like, we're not playing this game with you guys. Like, we put up with it, and we put up with it, and this enough is enough. If we don't have farmers, we don't have food, right? So that's an example of like everything I've been talking about, like the people using their voice, the people sending a really strong message to these other people who are in charge and make all the decisions on their behalf. So there's going to once again be this shift in the powers of the people, and the people saying we choose to take our power back, because it can't keep going this way. It's just completely unrealistic. We're also going to see, so I mentioned strength, that's also a big indicator of strength, power to the people, and the people saying, this is what I stand for. This is what's right. This is not what's right. There's this, like I said, this fairness and this balance that needs to happen in our society. So I feel like it does take a lot of courage and a lot of strength to be able to get up there and say, things need to change. I don't know how that looks, but I know that they need to change. But I also feel like people who have been kind of stuck on the sidelines, and this was another image that I saw when I was writing my notes, like there were people on the sidelines and they were standing up to get in the game. So I'm personally, I'm excited. I'm happy to see that. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about manifestation. Okay, so guys, I think many of us started to realize last year, especially, how significant and potent our energy is, our mindset is, when it comes to creating the lives that we want. Like it's finally clicking. I always think about that book, The Secret, that came out a long time ago, and everybody kind of jumped on the secret bandwagon, and we were all trying to manifest all the things. I think we're starting to realize that it takes strength and courage and vision. That's another theme of 8 is vision, like being the visionary, to create the kind of life that we want, to build it from the ground up. 7 talked a lot about, maybe foundations and, getting back to our roots, because 7 represents our ancestral roots, and it also represents like the roots within the earth, like trees, vegetables, and things that grow, right? This is where we start to see some of that growth happen. So maybe you leveled your house, you leveled your field, your inner field, last year. And this year is where you start to plant those seeds, you start to see those things grow, and you start to give energy to the things that you want to see grow, right? So I feel like it's really important to be mindful of your energy, your mindset, and take all of these things into accountability. We will start to really, truly, I mean, maybe there will be shifts in how people teach manifestation this coming year is kind of what I'm feeling. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Please leave it in the comments if you have a 2 cents about it. And then, okay, so now I'm going to move into a big conversation about power, right? So I mentioned power struggles, people taking their power back, right? 8 also represents like the changing of power from one to the other. As I mentioned, about our elections, we're going to have here in the United States, we're going to have a new president, but I'm also seeing other countries following suit. 8 years are really big years where power changes hands. Like I saw a vision of like, power being shifted from one person to another. And I'm not saying that this will happen. However, I feel like there have been talks about things happening with King Charles of England, and how, it's possible he may pass his reign on, go ahead and pass it on down to his son, Prince William. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying the writing's kind of on the wall on that. And there's some other pieces of literature that discuss this as well. So this is not coming from me. These are things that I have read, but it wouldn't surprise me, if a lot of leaders like maybe step down, and so that maybe a new generation or a new type of leader with, new ideas comes into the forefront. Okay, so 8 also represents discipline. So this is a year where we're going to be recognizing how discipline actually gives us more freedom. And y'all might be going, oh, I don't want to be disciplined. I know, I felt that way. I'm like, how much more disciplined do you need me to be? But this is going to give us more freedom in the long run. So 8 represents long-term goals, okay? So where 4 represents short-term goals, 8 represents long-term goals. So everything, all the steps that you take consistently on a daily basis is going to add up over time, right? Like, for example, let's say you start a weight loss regimen. It takes consistency, showing up every day, showing up for yourself, choosing to make good decisions with your diet, choosing to exercise. There is power in those choices. And think about, if I start this now, think about where I'm going to be a year from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now. Right now is a really good time to start making long-term goals and plans, And we also talk about, of course, it's the beginning of the year. A lot of people make New Year's resolutions. And so think about the resolution that maybe you want to start this year. And if it's like, if I continue this, if I can discipline myself, if I can hold myself accountable, what else could I accomplish? It can also give you the confidence. 8 represents confidence, and how we build upon skill sets, and how we, once again, take our power back in situations where maybe we felt powerless for a really long time. So something to consider. So cultivating innovative ways of doing things. I mentioned to us having discussions about new ways of doing things. 8 is the number of innovation. And so we might see new mindsets around, as I mentioned, different systems, like how we do things, how we've always done things, And so we might see, okay, well, this is how we've been doing it for this period of time. But, maybe we look to our ancestors. We have those 7 themes coming back around. We look at how they did things. How did it work out for them? If we applied it to our now world, how would that look? Would it still work the same way? Could we come up with new ways of doing things based off of theories and ideas that came from the past? So innovation to me looks like, creating something new, but also like honoring the past, and saying, I'm going to build upon this, right? So I'm seeing like maybe new technologies really like hitting home this year, and I heard medical. So I don't know if there's like medical technologies that maybe they started working on in the last couple of years, and they're going to start like maybe trying them out this year. Things like that, which that would also apply to the systems theme that we have going. But working together, creating something expansive that will benefit many is a big theme that's going to start happening this year. Also this year, ask yourself, what achievement and success mean to you? So not the society accepted meaning, So this is about, once again, taking our power back by saying, well, this and this and this don't resonate with me anymore. Right. And noticing how, all of the things that have happened in the past, few years, and how that's like really shaped you, and like having the courage to step forward and say, I know that this was me then, and I was in survival mode, or, I was kind of narrow-minded, or I was like kind of conditioned by my surroundings. I'm going to take my power back, and I'm going to look at this. I'm going to adopt this new way of living, this new way of being, this new belief. It can be about our belief systems. So 7, 8, 9, that is kind of an underlying theme that they carry. Now 8 can represent like religious systems, but we're talking more about personal beliefs, so not necessarily like a religious belief, but you may see a lot of people switching up their religious beliefs this year. I do feel strongly, just with the way that the world is, and as well as messages that I have received from the records, that our mindset, our spiritual themes have been coming up a lot. And I feel like as we step more into this age of Aquarius energy that we're in, we're going to see those be more prevalent. I feel like there might be even more business opportunities for people who consider themselves to be spiritual, the spiritual realm, or maybe something that's not something that we're just not used to here in our society. So put a pin in that if you've been thinking about maybe opening your own business. This year might be a good year for you to do that. But we can talk about that more when I get into the personal year numerology. So the world stage, I talked about that. Also, I want to mention, 8, even though it has like what we tend to consider masculine themes, it's actually a feminine number. And so we might see a lot of women rise to power this year. And it may be, over, like I said, countries, governments, corporations, companies, business, all of those themes. We'll see women rise to power. I also want to touch on this as a side note. So, 2024 is about, like I said, the 2 and the 4 and the 8, they're all about fairness and balance. The way that manifests is different. But, women have really been, stepping up, and like there have been movements, there have been discussions about, how women are treated, in our society, how, we fought for equal pay, we fought for, laws to be changed and things like that. I see that really coming into play, and that being, all of these things that have happened, it's going to be a big catalyst to whatever changes might be made this year. So as a woman, I'm excited to see that, and I'm really excited to see these shifts in, how we operate as a society because of that. I'm really curious to see how all that manifests itself. We also might see, I mentioned religious institutions. Let's hop back on the train. Religious institutions. So we might, like I said, we might see changes in like people's religious beliefs, or how religious institutions operate. A lot of them sometimes act, and no offense to anybody who considers themselves to be religious, but how some of these religious institutions are just over the top, and they operate like corporations, and I understand that, the financial backing and the financial part of them is crucial. I mean, obviously they have to keep the doors open somehow, right? But I'm just seeing like and this was something that came to me, the laws and the ways that they operate and how they manage their money are going to change as well. So put a pin in that as well. I see it just undergoing an overhaul. So we're also going to be dismantling greed, which is the shadow side of 8, and how greed has just contributed to so many downfalls in our society. So many things have been unregulated. So 8 is going to kind of, regulate it back. It is the regulator. So we've had so many things run rampant. And also, I want to just note that, as we talked about 8 being like about balance and all of that, it's also the number of karma. So everybody's like, oh, okay. Like I'm also like sitting there going back like, okay, what have I done? And so we might see karma play out in real time with some of these aspects that I've been mentioning. So know that it may be flipped upside down. Equality and peace want to reign. 6 and 8 are really big about peace and harmony. And they're like, I want peace and harmony. I will fight you, in order to get it. until you understand, what I'm trying to bring. So it's going to we are going to see necessary changes being made this year. I do see people, as I mentioned earlier, stepping into the spotlight that are going to help with this, because these people, 8 is a very intuitive number, and I'm seeing people with very strong intuitive insight going to be stepping forward. That's going to be a priority for us. We want people that not just, can be puppeteers and just like recite things and repeat things. They're going to know. They have an inner knowing. They truly understand how these systems work. They truly understand the necessary changes that need to be made, and they're going to be the ones that are going to help us out. And so I give gratitude to them already because I'm ready to see it happen. We're also going to see things around value. I think I mentioned about money and everything, but also think about your values. As an individual, what do you value most? And maybe you'll see shifts in those things. For example, like I said, maybe like you were conditioned this one way because that's all you ever knew. That's all that was available to you in your life. And finally you're saying, whoa, okay. I've kind of had, 2023 brought in some knowledge to me. And now I'm seeing things a little bit differently. And I'm like, wow, this like really, like I feel this in my heart. I feel this in my chest. I feel like things for me on an individual level need to change. And maybe that will put you in a position where you can go out and like advocate, or go out and go to your community town hall, go to your capital, go to whomever and say changes need to be made. So I see that happening for a lot of people individually this coming year, but we're just not going to be afraid to fight for what we believe in. So I'm really happy about that. And as I mentioned earlier, victory. So we are going to be overcoming a lot of stuff this year. So we can breathe a sigh of relief, even because, even with all the ratchetness going on in the world, we do have this ability to overcome. We have that. We are survivors, right? like we have really gone through it. And so I feel like that's also too another reason why, we are going to be standing in our power, because we are like, I've gotten through all of my worst days so far and I made it to the other side of it, Okay. So we're going to be also dealing with grief. So I see this individually as well as for the collective. Grief has been coming through really, really strongly. I think we're all finally like ready to deal with the heaviness of it, for especially for the last like 3 to 4 years, and how that shaped us as a society, but how that shaped us as individuals. So feeling it, appreciating the lessons that we learned through in our grief, letting go of, old ways of life and closing out certain chapters so that we can continue to move forward. Like I said, to build things, to take our power back and restoring the balance. So I feel like we're going to be working through grief. We're going to be letting go of grief. We might be feeling it really intensely at times, but it's time to start the process of like grieving, and letting go of the grief. So with that being said, 8 rules the lungs. So we tend to hold grief in our lungs, in our chest, like that energy signature. We tend to hold it in our lungs the most. And also the circulation system, the heart space. So we're probably going to, it behoove us as a collective to do things that help us move grief. Like, so somatics, can help you move grief. Tap, EFE tapping can help you move through those kinds of emotions. That's also another reason that I am actually studying to be a Qigong instructor, is because there are meridians within the body that hold grief, which is, like I said, the lungs. And there are movements, intentional movements that you can do that can help you to move past this grief and get it out of your body. And replace it with joy. I feel like that's something that all of us can use right now is a little bit of joy, a little bit of relief, like hello, right? Also, I want to talk about, just really quick, I want to talk about an astrological correspondence with the number 8. So I know I mentioned this earlier, but I feel like based off of everything that we've talked about, I think it's nice to say that 8 is ruled by the planet Saturn. I know you're all are like, yay, oh my God, I love that for us. But 8 is ruled by the planet Saturn. And so if you think about Daddy Saturn, that's what I like to call him anyway. He requires discipline. He's our disciplinarian, our instructor. And we were talking earlier about like how discipline can benefit you in the long run. I feel like leaning into Saturn, like look where Saturn is in your natal chart or what transits Saturn is doing in your chart to really see like what big themes around discipline you might need this coming year and how that might look, how that might play out. Go ahead, empower yourself, like, make a plan for yourself going forward, because Daddy Saturn's going to be like, yay, good job. They're going to be like rooting for you. Saturn also represents our will, like our willpower, which is also can be a theme of 8. If you think about it, patience, individuality, and in profound wisdom and insight. So I feel like if we just do a little bit of hard work and we stay consistent with our ability to acquire knowledge and tapping into our intuition, we're going to be highly, highly rewarded for that. So don't be afraid if you're kind of like, about those themes. No, it's all for our highest and best good. So we're probably just going to maybe be reframing how we see, all of those themes this coming year. Real quick, before I start to get into January and our personal years numerology, I want to talk a little bit about the tarot correspondence. And you probably already know what I'm going to say. But the 8th card in the tarot is the Strength card. So we have this beautiful maiden who looks super chill, controlling this crazy lion. I always joke and I say he's like trying to give him a pill. He's like, take the pill, and it's like, it's gonna be okay. You know how you like when you give a dog a pill, you like rub their throat to get them to swallow it. Okay, I'm fine. This is fine. We're so serious over here. We're so serious, Daddy Saturn, I promise. Okay, but this is a key theme. This also represents a lot of the themes of the number 8. And I just want to read from this really rad tarot book that I got. It was published in, I think, 1970. Yeah, 1970. I thought it was really cool that I found this, but check it out, by Eden Gray. It says that the divinatory meaning of the Strength card is force of character, spiritual power overcoming material power, love triumphing over hate, and the higher nature of carnal desires. And then the reversed, which is like the shadow side, can mean domination of the material. So greed, discord, lack of moral force, fear of the unknown in ourselves. That's scary. That just sounds scary, doesn't it? And then the abuse of power. So yeah, and literally what we just talked about. So if you ever want to like kind of reflect, and this is actually something that I do, I keep tarot cards on my altar. And this actually helped me learn the tarot. So if you're somebody who is like interested in learning about the tarot, like pull a tarot card every day, look at the meaning, and then divine on it. And, maybe ask yourself, okay, I pulled this card today. What does that mean for me? Like, what can I take away from the meaning of this card, right? So it also represents, and this is one more thing, untapped potential. So let's see, where is it? There is a symbol. There's a symbol that represents the Kundalini, like our Kundalini life force energy. And I'm trying to remember where it is. I have seen strengths cards that contain a snake, which represents Kundalini energy. And that is, like I said, our life force. It's our like a tapping into our creative energy. And I feel like even though we have all of these like really, you know, um, strong structural, regimented things, we have all this Saturn energy. That's not to say that 8 doesn't contain really massive power in our creative energy, like creation. There's 8 steps of creation in the Bible. And let there be light, let there be man, let there be water and such. And so I feel like there is this opportunity to really birth something from that potent creative energy, life force energy that lives within each and every one of us. So I feel like delving into your spiritual practice and making room for this creative energy would be a really great use of time. And maybe that could be part of your discipline practice. Like, I want to tap into my creation energy, whatever's available to me. Okay. Now, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Let's talk a little bit about January 2024. So we are in a 9 universal month this year. The way that we calculate that is we take the universal year, which is 8, and we add it to the corresponding number of the month. So obviously January is 1. That's how we came up with 9. So some themes this month: keep close to the chest is something that I heard. I was like, oh, like, not necessarily keeping secrets. I feel like that might be like a negative aspect of that kind of energy, but just like, don't go out there and share all your plans with everybody just yet. Okay. So kind of sit on it. This is a good month for making those blueprints. So we talked about 8 and 9, being like a really good planning energy, like kind of, taking aspects and putting them all together. Create master blueprints for the year. Be generous with your time, energy, gift, and talents. So the positive or lighter side of 8 is a very generous energy. So if you can give back to somebody without needing a parade in your honor, without looking for compensation necessarily, just share what you have. And people might say, oh, I'm not good at anything. That's not true. You can be a shoulder for someone to cry on. You can volunteer, for a charity, whatever the case may be, whatever that looks like to you. Put yourself out there and be like, I really want to help. 9 is the energy of like philanthropy, charity, giving back. So 8 and 9 really, really like that energy. So also reflect on your why was a theme that came through. I love that. Okay, this is like a key to being intentional, right? Like, put yourself out there, say, okay, why, like, what is motivating me to move forward, right? So if we think about like Saturn and 8 and how they're motivators, they really want you to put your best foot forward, but think about your why this month and how that can maybe shape the rest of your personal year. Honor all that you have left behind or lost, and we've all lost something or somebody at some point in our life, right? And this would be a good time to honor everything that you left behind in 2023. Think about that. Even if it's a bad habit, even if it's a friendship, honor the lessons that you took from that. And then another thing that came through was clean out your closet, your house, your office, your garage, or your email. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to write it down. Hope that helps all of you for this month. Now, let's get into the personal, right? So the way that you find your personal year is you take your month and day of birth and add it to 8. Okay. Add it all up and then reduce it to a single digit. Now, the exception are master numbers. So if you add up all of those numbers and you get 11, 22, or 33, those are master numbers and you do not reduce those. However, the reduced number does still apply. So, if you're having a one personal year in 2024, some themes that are coming up is reclaiming your personal power. So, we did talk about that as being like an overall theme, but it's going to be really, really significant for you if you're having a one personal year. This is a good year for you to start a business, a worthy cause, a fundraiser, or to head a project. So one is the number of like starting, beginning, energy. Like they're very enthusiastic. They really want to create things. They want to build things. That you might be good at starting things, maybe ending things is or finishing things is difficult for you. But this is a great year for one personal years to get started, get moving, put yourself out there. Like you're the star of the show, okay? Two personal years. So enforce boundaries. Okay. So 8 does not play around. Okay. And if you are having a two personal year, you might have themes around like, needing to have stronger boundaries with people because twos tend to be, very generous but they can also be codependent on the shadow side. So find your voice, speak up, do not take mess and foolishness from people. Share your ideas. So you may have like a lot of, and it may not be necessarily, well, I don't want to say they're not creative ideas. All ideas are creative, but just take your ideas and run with them and share them with people. Don't be afraid to share them. Feel confident with the services that you provide. So, especially people who work in like a service oriented industry or offer services to people, like maybe take some courses like to kind of beef up your game, but really like stand strong, be confident in what you provide, what you put out there into the world. 3 personal years. So 3s are the advocates. They like to advocate for others. So that's going to be a big theme for 3 personal years. And giving a voice to the voiceless is what I heard. So, people who cannot advocate for themselves, children, the elderly, animals, things like that, nature, really go to bat for them this year. And this may look different for everybody. This could be something that you do, in your spare time. It could be your job, that you go to every day. Raise awareness, use your art and your creativity to empower others. So 3 is the number of art and creativity and community. So maybe you could, for example, start a campaign and maybe bring art therapy to the masses. It could truly look like anything. Let's see. And then, and fuel your passions. 3 is a very passionate number, whatever you feel like lit up by, think about that Kundalini energy. Think about like when you think about doing this thing, like, how does it make you feel? Does it make you feel excited? Does it light you up? Does it make you feel like, yes, go after those things this year because you have this beautiful 8 energy available to put power behind it. 4 personal years, find a mentor or be a mentor. So 4 and 8, 4 doubled is 8, right? So we like double that energy. And 8 has this like this mentor energy, this leadership. It is the number of leadership. So this leadership energy. 4 is the teacher. So if you have been feeling called to teach, get on out there, boo. So guidance, calculated risk, improved provisions, and inspired responsibility. All of those themes came through for a 4 personal year. So there's like kind of like that Saturn energy in there, talking about responsibility. I feel like maybe showing people that committing to something and being consistent with something is a really good use of time. And that's not something that we should be afraid of or intimidated by. 5 personal years. Necessary changes at work, finances and relationships, and maybe even traveling for work might be something that 5 personal years are called to do this year. So 5 is the number of adventure and travel, and they have some commonalities with the number 8. So like, being able to show up, having manager experience or manager energy, supervisor energy, and being able to assess and also get rid of things that no longer serve. I'm just feeling really strongly that there's a lot of work-related themes for the 5 this year. Focus on your overall health, but pay special attention to the bodily systems. So 5 is the number of our senses, and it's also the number of our physicality, right? So think about like 8 being the number of systems. Think about the systems of the body, like your digestive system. Do you need to, heal your gut? Do you need to make better choices? Do you need to eat more fiber? That's just a total example. Think about your cardiovascular system. Do you need to run more, for example? So those are some 5 personal year themes. 6 personal years. So networking, collaboration, demonstrations, and introducing colleagues. So I felt there were a lot of business themes with the number 6 too, for whatever reason. But I feel like making connections with people. So 6 is a number that likes to bring in people from all walks of life and introduce them and have conversations, open dialogue with these people. So I feel like you might have opportunities to meet new people this year, that could possibly, be a boost to your business. And then like going out there and putting yourself out there, kind of like, like what we've been saying for all the other numbers, honestly, putting yourself out there, not being afraid to take a risk. 8 can be a number involving, calculated risks. So, really think, and this would be a good energy to like make those plans, those long-term plans or your plans for your year. It's like, where do you want to be at, by this time next year in terms of your business or building your community, building your, what's the word? I can't think of words, but, building up your connections is what I'm trying to say. Motivate others or allow others to help you or offer you advice. So if you're the type of person who really just is like, I don't want to trouble anybody, let people help you this year. We all need help sometimes. So just relinquish to that fact. Now, 7 personal years. Regeneration was a big thing. And I don't know why, but I was like, okay, we'll go with it. Negotiations, contracts. I think I mentioned that earlier. Fairness in the workplace and in relationships. So like, I told you 8 is really big about fairness. 7 and 8 deal with like justice and the scales. Like you think about the 7th house is ruled by Libra, which is about the scales, right? Which is about that fairness. So, maybe you're doing a lot for somebody and they're not reciprocating, that kind of thing. Alchemizing your need for control and judgment. So, in that same wheelhouse as, law and systems and things like that. 7 and 8 deal with judgment and fairness, like I mentioned. So maybe if you find yourself struggling with judgment or you find yourself judging people unfairly, know that is going to be called out, and like ask yourself, like, why do I feel the need to judge people? Why is that something I feel like I need to do? So just recalibrating your relationships as well, especially within the workplace. Um, yeah, that came through really, really strong. But I do feel like the regeneration is like going to be the biggest theme. Like maybe you're kind of going to get some like a breath of fresh air after last year. 8 personal years. So we're having the 8 year. So there's going to be a lot of doubling up on those themes. But I got investing wisely, values, questioning authority. So you might be like, you know, do I really need to be listening to you right now? Cycles and staying present. So that came out together. So it makes me feel like as these cycles happen in your year, remaining like grounded and present, and not like giving it a lot of energy and knowing this is just the natural way of things. Trying not to control outcomes and reclaiming your personal power. Once again, I feel like the reclaiming the personal power for an 8 year is more like an undercurrent theme, right? So maybe by remaining present, not wanting to control outcomes, as I mentioned, that'll kind of like put some more energy back in your basket, and you'll be able to move forward on the things that you want to because you're not constantly giving it away. 9 personal year, merging and integration of lessons. So 9 is about like, it's kind of this culmination energy. It's like pulling back and like 8 and looking at the bigger picture and like why things had to happen the way they did. So you're going to be like in this period of like really integrating everything that you've learned, especially from the past decade of your life. Like all of these things, you might be ruminating, reflecting on things that have happened. You might have someone from your past coming back into your reality, and maybe that is to close out some needed cycle. The sharing or the teaching of hard-earned wisdom. So taking what you've learned, reflecting on it, and then sharing that with people who need it. I'm a firm believer that the things that happen to us in life help or happen to us to help somebody else down the road. So that kind of energy for a 9 personal year. And then also heard respite from old patterns. So getting a free pass, a get out of jail free card for some of these maybe destructive patterns that you've had, or these toxic patterns that you've had in your life, and then enjoying the rewards. So allow those to come to you, as you reflect back and like give gratitude, to the past, but know that everything happens for a reason and is for your highest and best good. 11 personal years. So let's go talk about the master numbers really quick, and I will be done for the day. 11 personal years, challenges with authority, particularly your parents came through, or caregivers. So I'm assuming most of you watching are adults and you probably don't live with your parents or your parents don't have any control over you anymore. But know that if they try to control you in some way, or maybe they have controlled you the majority of your life in some way, know that it is totally possible for you to once again reclaim your personal power in that situation and be like, I appreciate you and I understand like why you're doing, like, it's really about understanding. Like, wounded people often wound people, so looking at that perspective from the parents, having necessary boundaries. Once again, there's a theme with the 2, so 11 reduced is 2. So there's like overlapping theme there. Unique perspectives available. So being able to like, really open your mind to because like 11 is the number of enlightenment and illumination. And so you may have like these insights that are uncovered as you do your inner work, or you start to release things that no longer serve you, or you start to enforce your boundaries. The 22 personal year. So work challenges, the blocking and unblocking of ideas and funds. So maybe you're waiting for some money to come in so you can start a big project, but it's slow going. Know that there's a reason for that. And maybe there's something that you need to clear out in order for those things to come in. Redefining priorities and goals. So 22 is a very hardworking number. It's called the master builder. And sometimes they have a problem with work-life balance. And I feel like with this 8 personal year that seems to be really driven by, career and work and things like that, we may have to pull back in a 22 personal year and look at like what we want to achieve, but what is most important to us. So, we talked a lot about values. I feel like that theme is going to really, really apply to a 22 personal year. And then lastly, but not least, the 33 personal year, creative vision enhanced. So 33 is called the creative teacher. And so you're going to have like all of this like really good, juicy creative energy available to you. And I'm so excited for you for that. Cycles of manipulation closing. So the shadow side of like 33 and 6 is manipulation, like especially emotional manipulation, and like realizing that doesn't really serve. Like if you're having to manipulate someone in order to get them to do something, like, is that really in alignment with you? I don't think so. Making peace with what's no longer working. So, you may try to get things to work and get them off the ground or keep them afloat, and just really relinquishing to the fact that, you know what, if I'm trying this hard and it's still not happening and I'm having to like go above and beyond to make it happen, it may not be for me. And maybe there's a better use of my energy. Maybe just putting your energy in a different place will help those things to take off. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much. I went a little over my time, but that's okay. I just want to thank everybody who joined me today for my live. I want to thank everybody who plans to watch later. I would love to hear back from you if you have any questions about numerology, or maybe you want a numerology reading. I can help you with that. My website is akashicbec.com. And I'm also on Instagram as Akashic_Bec. I do have my page on private temporarily, so just know that whenever you go, if you plan to go in there and find me. And I'm also going to be, just as a closing note, I'm going to be offering some new sessions starting in February, and I cannot wait to share that with all of you. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be doing more content, more videos. I'm going to be teaching more this year. And yes, for those of you who have asked, I'm just going to address it on here. I do plan to have another retreat this year. So more information about that is coming, so stay tuned. I love each and every one of you. I hope you have an amazing and blessed 2024. Bye, you guys.